This week's episode of The Clear Out was recorded on the 31st of July 2022 at home in Wicklow. And it is an interview with my good friend, the artist and travel addict, Sean Whitehill, who has just spent about 9 days with us here at #blessed, the home of the Clear Out. And I took the advantage of having Sean here to stick him in a chair and to put a mic between us and to have a chat about travel and other things that came up. So it was late at night when we recorded. I do explain this. I explain this. You'll hear me talk about it shortly. So late at night, a little bit sleepy, a little bit quiet. So the sound quality is a little bit different to when it's just me on my lonesome. But it's perfectly audible and followable. And I think quite interesting in its way. So I hope you enjoy what you hear. Okay, that's it. Enjoy the episode. Enjoy the tell. 2 voices this week instead of 1. And I'll see you there real soon. Cheers. Bye.
Oh, not gonna change my mind. Leaving the dream behind.
Hi, my name is Dara Clear, and you're listening to The Clear Out. Welcome to another episode of Wellness with Attitude. This week I present an interview with my good friend, the travel addict and artist, and Sean Whitehill, whose work I've referred to before on the podcast. He has a website called travelmandalas.com where you can see his work. Sean is a seasoned traveller from Melbourne, Australia. And for several years now, he has been putting his travel experiences and things that have inspired him or moved him or struck him on his travels into really lovely mandalas. And we were lucky enough to have Sean staying with us here at #blessed for the last for about 10 days, 9 or 10 days. He left here a few days ago on his onward journey, and we sat down late on his last night here. We were both knackered, and we had a bit of a dozy 1-hour conversation about travel and about his art, and it was very pleasant. But we were both a bit tired, and I was so dozy that I forgot to really get him to discuss the art itself. And Sean's a very humble sort of character and not a natural self-promoter. And it was only after we'd stopped recording that I asked him about the art, and he spoke very eloquently about it and explained how when he had been working about 7 or 8 years ago, he was working as a trail guide on the Lara Pinta Trail, which is a trail in the middle of Australia, I think the sort of southern end of the Northern Territory. And basically, when Sean travels, he always has a sketchbook with him, and he sketches things. Sometimes he'll sketch after a photograph he's taken. But he came away from that experience touring leading a walking tour on the Lara Pinta Trail with some great images, which he subsequently finished. They're hand drawn, hand coloured, and he put them into a lovely calendar. 1 image for each month of the year, which he shared with family and friends. We were amongst that group, and since then it's kind of been his thing, his métier. And he was explaining to me after the interview how it just emerged that way. He didn't set out to draw mandalas. That wasn't a particular obsession, but when he started doing those pictures from that time, the very first one, it came out and it was mandala in form, and he realized it just appealed to him, and he really liked the idea. How he put it was the way, well, and it's true for any picture, he said, but the way mandala can tell a story, and he liked the challenge of the form. And he also liked how it didn't have to be a clean, closed line around the edges of the mandala. It didn't have to be so contained within the form. And he liked the Zen implications of a mandala as well. The cleaning, or maybe the cleaning of the mind, or the cleaning of the imagination, the arranging, the tidying, and certainly it is the work of someone with a fine eye for detail. And so he, as I say, it was something we didn't get to in our interview, because we, as ever with my style of talking and interviewing, we let things be pretty organic and move wherever they moved. But a nice interview nonetheless. So that is, that's coming up shortly. I'm trying to think what else of note is worth commenting upon. Did any of you watch the Euro finals, the women's Euro finals? I was enormously impressed with the English women and their victory over Germany in the final. And I was comparing their performance to their male counterparts who reached the final of the men's Euros last year. So this is soccer, football we're talking about, to the if you're uninitiated. And last year in the final, the English men went into their shells after scoring early and put in an overly cautious performance. The game ultimately went to a penalty shootout, and those penalty shootouts historically have not gone England's way, and that one was no different. But they let themselves down. They played with no character. They played with no conviction. They showed virtually no aggression or strong positive mentality, and that's really not the stuff winners are made of. Cut to Sunday night last, and the England women were playing a very accomplished German team, I think, who've won the women's Euros more than any other team. And it was a great match. It was very competitive, and a lot of great football was played, and England won. They beat the Germans 2-1. Their second goal, the winning goal, was a sloppy, snatched at effort, but in it went, and it counted, and they were the winners. And I was just impressed with how they conducted themselves. I was impressed with their aggression. I was impressed with their toughness. I was impressed with their no-nonsense approach to tackles, and their no-nonsense approach to receiving tackles and getting up and getting on with the game. No histrionics, no rolling around on the ground in agony. And I just thought, well, hats off to those young women. And much has been made of their victory across English media, of course, and what it means to lots of young English girls in particular, seeing that performance laid out for them, watching the women's team throughout that tournament. And I don't need to probably add to the hyperbole, but I was very impressed. And there's no note of patronisation in that, or condescension. They're athletes, they're professional athletes, and they should be good, but it was their attitude and their mentality that struck me more than anything else. And I thought, man, oh man, the boys could learn so much from this. That's how you play the game. That's how you get stuck in. That's how you stay positive. you keep the intensity up, you keep the aggression up, and you're there for each other. Just palpable team spirit, confidence in pursuing the task at hand, and they were deserved victors. So well done, the English women, the Lionesses, as they are known. It was good. It's those moments in sport are nice. They really are good. So and I was watching it with Sean, whose interview you're about to hear. Sean and my daughter were watching it. My wife was out gigging, so she missed it. But yeah, great fun. So there you go. So I might just leave it at that, without further ado. And here is me talking to Sean Whitehill, artist, travelmandalas.com. I hope you enjoy what you hear. Cheers. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Dara.
So here you are. Here you are in #blessed. How did you find the journey here?
I get better at long distance travel as I get older, but it was probably 40 hours. Lots of waiting around in airports, and it's a certain drain, isn't it?
Do you hear that?
And it's
hold on, I want everyone to just clock that for a second. 40 about 40 hours. That's how much Sean cares about being on the podcast. That's how much Sean cares about contributing to the tell. He travelled 40 hours. So any of you out there who might be listening, any of the 7 listeners who think, yeah, I want to be on the podcast too, I want to go on and do an interview, I want to share my stuff, ask yourself, how far are you willing to go? Because Sean travelled 40 hours. He came via Colombo. Now, when I say Colombo, I'm not talking, he didn't travel back in time and appear on the TV show and access some strange portal into the future to get here. I'm talking about Colombo is it Sri Lanka, is it?
It's in Sri Lanka. It's
Nice.
full of wonderful Sri Lankan people.
Excellent,
Dara.
excellent.
Why is that such a...
No, it's cool. What was it? Was Malinga? Was he Sri Lankan? The bowler?
I
Malinga?
believe so, yes.
Malinga the slinger.
Yes.
Very good, very good.
Mhm.
This could sound like a rather sleepy conversation because Sean didn't come directly here straight to the mic off the 40-hour flight. He's actually been here for about a week, and it's been a busy week. I've been squiring him around the vicinity, taking him to... Now, when I say watering holes, that's not a euphemism for pubs. I've actually been taking him to swimming spots in the rivers nearby and in the sea, and there's been a few walks, and it's actually been really good. But Sean's actually... You're about to get on a flight in... I think it's just under 8 hours. You're going to be flying to Berlin.
I am.
And then, as you were telling me before we started recording, the name of the river in Berlin is the Spree. So you might be able to have a swim in the Spree. What about that?
I like to think so.
Or it could be filthy.
It could. You just have to wait and see. I've not been to Berlin, so...
Do you like swimming in dirty water?
Not especially.
No.
No.
I remember one time in Melbourne in the summer swimming at the baths, the Brighton baths where you and I met, and I remember it was a particularly hot summer day. It was low tide, and I got in and swam, and I almost instantly regretted it. It was so warm, and I just felt like I was swimming in a petri dish. It just felt like, oh yeah, I'm in here with all the bacteria and all the scuzz that the heat is just stirring up and gently kind of sizzling. I didn't get sick, thanks for asking, but I just thought, what am I actually getting out of this? Sometimes you just shouldn't get in the water. Do you agree?
No, particularly, well, yeah, I mean, that's a bad combo, particularly if there's been significant rain in the 48 hours or so before.
Yeah.
Just washes all that
filth.
crap and filth in off the land straight into
Yeah.
the water. And then if it gets hot like that, then it just breaks down all the faster. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
very nasty, sleepy water.
That just that idea of washing away the filth and washing the filth into the water, it never doesn't make me think of Taxi Driver and Robert De Niro's monologue cleaning off the filth from the seats of the taxi, and wanting to wash all the filth and the scum off the streets in that kind of pathological mindset. No, that's just a little tangent. Don't mind that. So I've mentioned you on the podcast a few times because I've been very happy to make reference to your art, which you now have proudly displayed and available for purchase on travelmandalas.com. Listen, there's no oh my goodness. You should be proud. You should be proud of your work.
I am.
Yeah, you should. So, I mean, it's a bit of a reduction.
Straight off the bat.
Yeah, it's a bit of a reduction, but you look at the work, and we've been privileged at #blessed to have looked at the work for quite some time, really, over the last 4 or 5 years. Has it been as long as that you've been producing the calendars? And
It's been 7 years of calendars.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sean, is the calendar something you're going to be selling on the website as well?
I don't know, to be honest, at this point. And I've only just this last one was selling copies of that for the first time. They
Yeah,
were always
okay.
just for
Yeah.
family and friends for Christmas.
So just to clarify, Sean used to do this lovely calendar, and for each month there'd be one of his mandalas and a little bit of information about the inspiration behind the mandala, what location in the world fired his imagination and gave him the raw material of the mind and of the eye to then represent in the mandala. And just, again, you've heard me talk about them a little bit before, just these lovely, beautifully hand-drawn, intricate illustrations that are, I think, extremely unique. And we were very lucky. I took the bold step of commissioning Sean to do a very special mandala for my daughter. And when I say commissioning, I mean I didn't give him anything at all except good vibes and suggestions. Now, that won't cut it. If you think I'm going to buy one of Sean's mandalas off the website and just like Dara, I'll send him good vibes and suggestions, that won't wash. Because I've got previous with Sean, okay, so we've got a friendship. So he did us great favour and brought over on his trip this time from Australia a beautiful, very unique mandala for our daughter that features Darth Vader riding on a unicorn with a cat. I think it's a cat up front and a kookaburra behind, and he's got a sort of a rainbow coloured lightsaber. I think there's 4. Are there 4 Darth Vaders?
There are.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a
4 quadrants.
4 quadrants. Generally, I mean, I know some of the mandalas are kind of, there's one main illustration, but most of them would follow that kind of pattern, approximately the 4 quadrant idea.
That's the traditional
Yeah.
mandala. But various mandala artists obviously branch out in all sorts of different ways from that. But I tend to return to it, but like to break it up and try different things as well.
Sure. And I was what I was driving at before, I was going to say it's a bit of a reduction to say the mandalas combine your 2 great loves, because I mean you have other interests and other passions, but I was going to say they combine 2 of your great passions in life, which is art and travel.
That's right.
And where did that start? Like, did you, like, when you were a kid in Australia, actually, and you were a good Melburnian, good Victorian boy. You grew up in Melbourne, in the kind of suburban Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
At what point in your life did you go, yeah, I want to get out of here. I want to travel. Now, let me quickly jump in. I know for a fact Sean's a great lover of Australia and the sort of the great riches that Australia has to offer geographically, scenically, and he's very well travelled in Australia and was a trail guide, tour guide out in certain parts of Australia and particularly down in Tasmania. But outside Australia, when did you have that? When did you first become aware that you had this kind of like, I want to go out and see places and travel, because I don't have it. I don't have the travel bug. I'm a little, boring homebody who just goes, right, I'll create the kind of travel experience in my mind, which of course makes my wife want to kill me, because she would have a bit more of that travel impulse in her. But yeah, so what about you? When did it start for you? When did you think, get me out of here?
I was unexpectedly invited when one of it was a group that I used to hang around with. We used to probably drink together.
Yeah.
When I was 23, they were going on a trip to Bali.
Yeah.
And one of them had to pull out, basically, and I got called up and invited. It was completely unexpected. I hadn't really considered going abroad at this point, and so it was a very typical young Australian trip to Bali.
Do you think? Sorry, I'm cutting across here, but just that you mentioned Bali. I mean, Bali's kind of it's Indonesia, isn't it? Bali.
It is.
Yeah. It's kind of like if in Europe, say a lot of Irish and English might go to very popular Spanish beach resorts, maybe some French destinations as well. But I suppose Spain in particular, Costa del Sol and that kind of thing. Bali would be maybe a bit of an equivalent for a lot of Australians.
Definitely. It's great surf, strong culture, cheap prices. There's party if you want it.
I was going to say, like at that young age, is it just a bit messy? Is it just a bit, let's go to the beach, drink a load of beer?
In a lot of cases, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And I won't say our trip was without a little mess, but we're just young guys being young guys,
That's
I suppose.
okay.
But we didn't do any damage. We didn't get locked up or
that's okay.
break any laws or anything like that.
No, good. I'm glad to hear it, because
it was fun.
One thing we can't abide on the clear out is a criminal. No vandals, no arsonists, none of that sort of thing. Okay, so that was the beginning, and like then was travel. Was it something that kind of started to feature more regularly then throughout your 20s and on, or?
Yeah, and into Asia, mostly on short trips during vacations from jobs and stuff like that. But yeah, it just grew very quickly, and I didn't want to, like, as much fun as I had on that Bali trip, but I didn't want to travel like that.
Yeah.
And I probably just didn't know quite how I wanted to travel. I didn't want it to be all about the party.
Sure. So
I wanted to get to know cultures and, see places for everything they were, in as much as I could do that. And and I sort of got to thinking that I really wanted to do extensive travels abroad, but what I really wanted to do first was to get to know my own country. And so I bought a 4-wheel drive, I put a sea kayak on the roof of that, and I spent 3.5 years travelling around Australia.
All right.
And,
okay.
Doing little adventures out to island hopping for several days at a time, and
all right,
the hiking pack strapped to the front in a black garbage bag.
Yeah, on the kayak.
And, on the kayak, and like trekking all over the place. Bit fruit picking here and a bit of landscaping there, odd jobs to keep the money coming in, but it was essentially just on the move. Well, I had the best part of a year in Darwin actually. And moved around quite a bit from, different living places. And
did you get a bit up in Darwin? You would have got a bit of an insight into Aboriginal culture, into Indigenous Australian culture, or not?
To be honest, probably wasn't. I just a late bloomer in so many ways, and probably that was my first introduction to Australia has some issues with the Aboriginal culture, and how it fits in with white culture, and, the social problems that exist there. Was I going onto communities and having quality experiences, getting to know a lot of Indigenous people, or taking part in workshops with them or anything like that? No, that wasn't happening. As much as I would have loved it to, it seemed like there are a lot of probably complicated issues around that, and I wasn't ready for that at
Sure.
that time, but I was certainly travelling around with my eyes open
Yeah.
in regards to that,
Yeah.
and trying to understand it as much as I could.
Mm.
But there's only so much you can understand. When you, it's all about who you're having your conversations with, who you're getting your information from. And
Sure, because you're not
to access.
Yeah, you're not on the inside of that experience. But after, like, beyond Australia then, and continuing the travel and this desire to sort of pursue extensive travel, was it like, were you primarily a solo traveller? Was it like heading off on your own to have these experiences?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And what's the appeal of that? Because some people would hate that. They want the maybe the security of someone with them, or the companionship to share the experience.
I guess I was always a bit of a lone wolf.
Oh,
and
no, stop! I recognise that, because I too am a lone wolf. And indeed, when Sean and I met in Melbourne, I think there was just that glimmer of steely recognition as we stood there in our Speedos. I was going, that guy's a lone wolf. I think I might be a lone wolf too.
Uh-huh.
The problem was, when two lone wolves hang out together, they're no longer lone wolves. They're just two wolves. And maybe
I
that's,
like it.
yeah, look, it is what it is.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, you were the lone wolf striking out alone.
Well, it's kind of embarrassing to just think about it put like that.
No, don't be embarrassed. You are a Hmong friend.
Yeah. I guess it's freedom, isn't it? You can do what you want, and when you're travelling alone, we all need people, and of course in some ways we're more likely to meet other people. If we're in a group or with one person, we might be sort of spending more of our time just in that group and feel like we've sort of got our company, and less likely to sort of reach out and sort of get to know the people around you, whether it's other travellers in a hostel.
You're just you just become locked in, But
it can happen that way,
yeah.
And for me, it just meant that I could I could do what I wanted. I could go where I wanted, and believe me, I was certainly meeting a lot of people. And
you were able to indulge your selfish side, is what you're saying. You could do what you wanted.
Definitely, yeah.
Pursue Sean stuff,
which was great. And I certainly see that there is another side to that, and that's probably going to be hard for me to.
Joking aside, and I'll probably have to say that a few times during this chat. One of the things that struck me as I was asking you the question, it must be peaceful in a way to travel solo. Does that resonate? A peacefulness to it, or a tranquility to being by yourself?
I think so. Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning at this point. I'm a fairly introverted guy.
Yeah.
Which means that as much as I love being around people, it can be an effort.
Yeah.
And so at some point I need to get back to the base and just be able to recharge, and that's often, if not in my own company, in the company of someone I feel very at ease with, and all that kind of stuff. So and that's always a goal when travelling. There can be lots of logistical issues at times, and you can go through long stretches where you get moving between spaces, and there's things that have to happen before you can get some shut-eye. And some of these things can be stressful, if you're feeling confronted by a culture somewhere, for example. I always like to get to a point where it just helps so much to know yourself as an introverted person. You can't be just travelling and on the move the whole time. Sometimes you need to stop somewhere, feel the space that you're in, get to know it a little bit, and take the time to get your head about you.
Sure.
And feel comfortable somewhere, then you can really take it on board.
Well, perpetual motion isn't a natural state.
No.
I would argue. Like, just to be constantly on the move, it's
it's
like you're communicating a message to your whole system that says, don't rest, don't stop. be ready to push on. And for me, that to me seems to push against a sort of an ability to sit and be still and, I don't know, appreciate, observe, listen to oneself. So yeah, stopping, and like I guess in the context of what we're talking about, travelling, moving from one place to the next, I suppose with the freedom of being on your own, with the freedom to go, do you know what, this place isn't working, maybe I'll shift on up the track or cross this side of the country instead of being here. That sort of quest to go, I'll find that spot where it's going to feel very natural to stop and be still and remain for a while. Would that be? That's maybe that's in the mix as well, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And look, when I was younger, there was a time when I could just kind of keep moving. But yeah, now I do look for those places where I do feel, whether it's just happen to meet, even if it's just as simple as meeting a friendly person, having a conversation with someone that just sets you on the right track in a new place.
Yeah.
And you don't know what might unfold from there, and if you come upon a place like that.
Yeah.
Then I might stop and stay, recharge, get to know, and as an artist as well.
Sure.
Sure. While I'm travelling, because so much of my inspiration comes from the travel. At some point, I need to be somewhat stopped to be able to get the ideas that are going on in my head about the things I've been experiencing, put them down on paper, and of course it stands to reason I want that to be in a place that I feel good and feel a certain connection to the place. Or,
sure.
Well, and the kinds of experiences that you have in a very short term and quick sort of way, you've got to fast track some things sometimes in travel.
Well, I suppose, and in terms of the artistic pursuit and what you're responding to, and knowing that you're going to take some of the things you see and maybe via the photos or via the memories, via the first impressions, you're going to start transferring those in artistic form into one of your sketchbooks. That's probably worth mentioning here, and I think I'll throw up. I mean, I'll certainly direct people to your social media and to your website, because you've shared a lot of your stuff online over the last while. But like a lot of Sean's mandalas there's a lot of flora and fauna. There are architectural features. Sometimes there's evidently artistic, elements of maybe art from the region where he's been and what he's depicting in the mandala, and sometimes there are basketball courts. There's been more than one, has there, with basketball courts?
I've done 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's one of your other big loves, is basketball, no?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe like a bit of sport in general, no? But basketball in particular?
Sport in general. I mean, I love a whole bunch of different sports, but basketball, I don't know how that's managed to capture me. Well, to be fair, Michael Jordan was largely responsible for capturing me.
The great Irish basketball player, Michael Jordan from Enniscorthy. Or you might be talking about the American guy from the Chicago Bulls.
Well, I'm talking about the American League.
Oh, right.
Whether
right.
he's from Ireland or not, I'm not 100%. I was thinking probably not.
Yeah, not the Enniscorthy, not one of the Enniscorthy Jordans. So Michael Jordan, that's going back to the 90s, really, isn't it? Was that was the Jordan era, late 80s, 90s?
Yeah.
And you were playing a bit of basketball yourself.
I was. Yeah. Loved the game.
Yeah. Because actually, no, listen, I'm going to jump on you now, because one thing I haven't seen in your mandalas, speaking of your love of sport, I haven't seen any cricket paraphernalia, and I haven't seen...
That's because I haven't done any yet.
Okay, well there you go. That's
I'm open.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Sharon. Not one Sharon.
No, but there are.
There are.
There's a couple of recent in the latest section of the gallery on my website.
Oh.
I've posted a couple of From this year, this season.
So
I've done a drawing for the Indigenous game between
nice.
Essendon and Richmond that I attended with my niece.
Brilliant.
And from the Anzac Day clash, which is also Essendon against Collingwood.
Right. The Richmond Essendon is one of the Melbourne Australian rules football teams. AFL, known colloquially in Australia as footy. If you like the footy, you're talking about Aussie rules football. Probably, really, let's face it, probably brought to Australia by the Irish. I think we're going to claim that one. We were playing a bit of Gaelic, and the Aussies, they couldn't find a Gaelic ball, and they just had this wonky looking ball, and eventually that became known as the Sharon, which is the company that makes the standard Australian rules football. Would that be fair, Sean?
Well, it sounds like you're pinching it off the Indigenous people of Australia, actually.
Does it start with the Indigenous people? Did it?
Well, it's probably a combination of things, but they were... Was it a skin that they used? An animal skin that they stuffed that they used to kick around with a game they called Marngrook?
Ah, okay. I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm a great student of the game.
Mm-hmm. No, I can't claim to know all the ins and outs and details of the history of the game.
But you're a big fan. You've been checking your footy scores regularly since being here with us in Wicklow.
I have. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So okay, well that's okay. That's we'll definitely, the link to Sean's website will be there, travelmandalas.com, and I'll put the link in the description for this episode, so you can go and check out the work. So we'll stay with the mandalas for a second and the travel. There's a couple of questions I want to ask you, but first, what have been your top destinations so far? Like the destinations that, and I mean, maybe they're not destinations that necessarily made it, maybe stimulated a lot of mandalas or inspired a lot of mandalas, but maybe the ones that did inspire mandalas, but maybe also some of your personal favourites, because you've really covered a lot of ground over the last several years with your travels.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to throw in Nepal, just because of the sheer size of the landscape there.
Okay.
And I wanted to trek particularly the Annapurna circuit there for a long time from a fairly young age.
That's in Nepal.
And that's in Nepal.
And it's has Nepal got the Himalayas, yeah?
That's got the Himalayas, yeah. And it's kind of got the best part, the most accessible, I believe, part of Mount Everest.
Right.
So it's kind of borders up with Tibet.
Yeah.
It's not so easy coming in from the other side.
From the Tibetan side.
As I understand it.
Yeah.
The Khumbu Valley is a great place. It's where Everest Base Camp is set up, and most climbers strike out for the summit from there.
Yeah.
I managed to do the base camp trek while I was there as well, and just as someone who loves trekking, it's one of my great loves as well. And Nepal is your paradise.
How does Everest Base Camp compare with Lugnaquilla, which you walked with me the other day? Lugnaquilla, for those of you who don't know, is the highest peak in Leinster, highest peak in County Wicklow, and I took Sean up there the other day. We had a nice little walk, and I could tell Sean was very impressed. But Sean, don't let me put words in your mouth. Tell me, give it to me straight. How does Lugnaquilla compare to Everest, in your opinion?
Well, it's magnificent in its own way, isn't it, Dara? It was a fantastic experience, and of course I walked out with a great mate, and I walked.
That was me. That was me. In case you missed that, I was the great mate, and I still am.
The Everest Base Camp trek was about 9 days long instead of 4 hours.
Okay.
And
but 4 hours is fast for Lugnaquilla, by the way, listener. The route we took, we smashed it. Continue, please.
Yeah, and that walk was into the valley at the bottom of a large mountain rather than to the top of a mountain like what we did with Lugnaquilla. So the landscape is very white and icy.
Yeah.
Up on in that Khumbu Valley.
Yeah. Okay.
And we didn't see any snow, did we?
Not this time, but I've been up Lug a couple of times in the snow, and it's a bit special. It's nice to be up there in all conditions. I won't relay the story of how I nearly got lost and Saved my own life, like the champ I am.
No prayer flags at the top of Lugnaquilla either. Dara?
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
How high up do the prayer flags go in Everest? Are there prayer flags up the top?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yep, I'll never stand on top of Everest myself. But
No.
Having seen photos,
You think
people bring all sorts of stuff up there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oxygen tanks.
Amongst other things, yeah.
Do you think you'll never be on top of Everest because that ship has sailed, because you feel you won't have the conditioning, because you're a fit guy?
That's a big conversation.
Or is it an ethical thing?
There's probably a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe would I be able to get the fitness there? Maybe. Well, I just don't fancy it. It just doesn't interest me. I don't like the cold as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And just out of respect, it's a big conversation.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, quickly, I'll throw in my own tuppence worth. I mean, it is as much as obviously there are lifelong, passionate outdoor types and mountaineers, climbers, and Everest is one of those mountains that they want to do at some point. But it's been my impression for some time that Everest has also been a bit of a tourist mountaineer destination, or maybe someone who has a lot of money that they can throw at a good team and a lot of equipment, and they can just tick it off their bucket list without it necessarily being something maybe organic or based on a lifetime love. I mean, I wrote about this a few years ago on the website, and sometimes I feel with some of these places, the idea of conquering natural landmarks, some of these amazing standout locations in the world, it just feels, I don't know, there's something about it that sits not quite right with me. And I think, just sometimes just let it be, just let nature be, and you don't have to go, I did that, here's my flag, I stuck in it, here's my photo of me at the top.
It does seem, not with all climbers I suspect, but it does have that element of just another example of human beings trying to conquer nature.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, do we always need to do that? And I do think, probably speaking generally here, I think climbers each have their own story and their own reasons for doing these things. But any time you're doing something and someone may be dying on the trail or be dead, and you're having to simply leave them there.
Yeah. It doesn't feel quite right, does it?
It doesn't sit quite right.
No. I guess that's the point I was going to make. I mean, like, excuse me, not being like facetious, you go up Lugnaquilla, there's no real cost. I mean, obviously it's a fingernail, compared to what you have to achieve to climb some of these huge mountains in the world. And I was obviously being silly making the comparison, but there's no cost to the environment really with that exploration. But it seems like there is and can be, and there's been a well documented cost to these Everest treks, these Everest ascents, whether it's this idea that it's not unusual for climbers to die, it's not unusual for people to get stuck up there, there's a certain amount of waste that gets tossed aside. There's also maybe some implications about maybe an exploitation of the Sherpa population or community. It just seems to me that it's increasingly the mountain's increasingly attracting people who don't really have a history of mountaineering. It was never really their passion. Yeah.
But all of a sudden they can recognise the status that having climbed it can bring them.
Yeah.
So they turn their attention towards it because they want to be one of the people who've climbed up there, and they pay people to some of those Nepalese guides and Sherpas. They just, the money they can be offered is very hard to turn down.
Yeah.
And finally, it is their decision at the end of the day whether they choose to involve themselves. But some situations have been put in harm's way.
Sure.
And have lost their lives as well. So I don't know. It's complicated.
Sure.
Yeah. Not all of it reads that well.
No, and I mean it's a negative line to go down, but Let's turn away from that then for a second, or no, let's turn away from that altogether, and move back to your other destinations. But Nepal, Annapurna route, that was the first thing you mentioned. I mean, you just spent almost 2 years in Costa Rica during riding out the pandemic. You kind of
it has to be one of my
semi stranded over there, but like it was a good place to be stuck.
It was a tremendous place to be stuck. I was in the southeast corner of Costa Rica, not far from the Panamanian border, and it was quite life there. I was in a small town that's usually quite touristy, and became touristy again as things slowly started opening up.
Yeah.
But I was living beside the beach, and I'm a beachy kind of guy as well, and some nice waves for a body surfer like me.
Sure.
And it was a perfect opportunity to sit down and do a lot of drawing as well. So Costa Rica has a special place in my heart. Japan for its culture.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to have a bad experience in Japan.
Right, nice.
I love Spain. The first time I walked the Camino de Santiago, I still believe that's the best experience of my life. And so, of course, it means I have a great feeling about Spain.
Yeah.
The places that I love the most, of course, they're experience-based. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with their standing on a world scale or anything like that. It's just...
Well, that's an interesting thing as well, isn't it? Because I'm just thinking like all relationships, timing is a big factor in the success or failure of them. So I guess being in a certain place at a certain time can be magical and transformative and memorable for all the right reasons, or it can be just the wrong time to be there in your life, or something like like you say. I mean, when you did the Camino the first time, there was something about wherever your head was at that time in your life. It was obviously just a great experience for you.
Yeah, I'd read a book by, probably, well, depending who's listening, some people may be familiar with the author Paulo Coelho.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
the author of The Alchemist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly, amongst other things. And he did a book called The Pilgrimage, which was about his trip along the Camino de Santiago, which was transformative for him. And he probably credits that as setting him on a particular path that's been very successful for him. But I was just fascinated and intrigued by the whole, this idea of a pilgrimage. People walking for weeks and weeks and weeks to get to a destination, and it really appealed to me. And I read that book 10 years before I got to Spain to do it. And in the year before I did the Camino, I'd quit a job basically that had given me a couple of great years, but also a very difficult third one.
Yeah.
And as soon as I resigned and gave them a final 3 or 4 weeks, I went directly to New Zealand, did some trekking over there, expecting to come back to Melbourne a couple of weeks later and pick up my own landscaping business again. Yeah. And but I ended up staying 10 weeks in New Zealand, and I started having dreams about a bigger travel to Europe, and at some point it dawned on me this is the time to do the Camino. So
and was it
when you
were in New Zealand that you went, New Zealand culture is better than Australian culture? Was that when you came to that conclusion in those 10 weeks?
Did I tell you I'd come to that conclusion, did I? Look, I love New Zealand.
New Zealand says great things about you as well.
Yeah, look, the nature there is, I think it's next level, and for example, their tallest mountains at least twice as tall as ours, I think, in Australia, and the trekking's...
Mount Kosciuszko, is that the tallest mountain in Australia? Yeah. But we were talking about the Irish landscape, and we've had a bit of we had another lovely walk today up above Glendalough. It was really nice. Not too demanding, but just a nice little healthy Sunday morning walk up in the fog or the mist in the early morning. But I think we were saying one of the days that like Ireland is like a kind of a mini, it's similar to New Zealand landscape, Tasmanian landscape, but on a smaller scale. Would that
Definitely,
be?
yeah.
And that's why you love Ireland so much. Yeah.
Well, I mean, where I was, one of the treks in particular that I was guiding on in Tasmania is a very glacial landscape. And I've always spoken about this earlier, didn't we?
Yeah.
Those 2 walks we did.
Yeah.
Glenmalure.
Oh, nice.
Glenmaclure and
Glenmalure
both,
and Glendalough.
Both very clearly glacial valleys as well. And,
yeah.
Very similar feeling.
Sure.
Walking up there. Yeah.
Excellent.
It's cool weather hiking as well, and quite misty and moody on its day.
Yeah. Well, we got a bit of that today, definitely.
Lots of rugged rocks sticking out. And
around. To say, around the rugged rocks, the ragged rascal ran.
Goodness.
Have you seen that movie? What is it? It's a Coen Brothers movie. Hail Caesar. Is that what it's called?
I haven't caught that. No.
Oh yeah. There's I'm sure that's what it is. Ralph Fiennes has a hilarious cameo in it as. Basically, he's meant to be sort of a Laurence Olivier character, and he's directing this cowboy star in a kind of parlour drama, where he has to be quite debonair, and he just can't speak well. He's just got this, cowboy accent that he can't shake. Like, he's a guy who does tricks on horses and tricks with lassos, and they're like, look, we're gonna try and bump you into this kind of movie now, and Ralph Fiennes is just trying to get him to speak in that very elegant, received pronunciation kind of way, and that's what he's trying to get him to say. Around the rugged rocks, the ragged rascal ran. And the guy just can't do it, and Ralph Fiennes is just cracking. I might be imagining that. Maybe I'm confusing that. Maybe that's in Singing in the Rain with Gene Hagen. But it doesn't matter, it's the same kind of idea anyway. Rugged, as you said. So, you've gone Japan, Costa Rica, Nepal, they're right up there with some of your favourite spots. You've produced some beautiful mandalas from those parts of the world. You've just had, this is not your first time in Ireland, you were here about 9 years ago when we were in Melbourne. And you passed through and had a bit of a look around. If, and no pressure here, you don't have to make any commitment, but if you were to take some of the images you've seen this week from some of our getting around, what do you think might make it onto a mandala?
Yeah, I've been thinking about possibly Lugnaquilla.
Okay, nice.
I think, but I just I'll need some time to look back at some of those photos that I took.
Yeah.
As you know, I like cafe culture as well. I've done lots of mandalas about various cafes.
That's right.
As well across time.
Yeah.
And what was it? Bewley's.
In
Dublin is a very unique cafe. I
feel
with lots of very unique imagery in there that would be easy to create a mandala of.
Nice.
And I might turn my pen and pencils to that at some point as well. Gosh.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's all good. That's all good. Yeah. No, that's look. It's not a bad start. Not a bad start. We'll see what else might emerge. As
the Bray waterfront.
Oh, you like that a lot? Yeah, the promenade.
There,
yeah.
Oh, there's so much going on there, huh?
Yeah.
And of course you've got Bray Head up on the horizon there
nice.
As well.
Yeah.
That crazy, all those beautiful and varied old homes on
along the seafront
along the seafront.
This
crazy, colourful amusement park.
For the summer season, a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Nice. Let's put Bray on the map. Okay, because maybe
I think it's already on the map.
Well, it is. You can find it on the map, on a map of Ireland, on a map of Wicklow. Sometimes I feel Bray gets some bad press, but Bray is the seafront is nice. It's got
and
something
seafronts are nice.
They
that
are.
amusement park there.
Oh yeah.
If you want to go down and enjoy the foreshore of Bray, but you're not into amusement parks.
Are you working for
then
Bray Council? Are you has the mayor of Bray had a word in here to promote Bray? No.
No.
You're just okay.
No, I'm an impartial observer.
Oh yeah, nice, good man.
So it's an interesting space. Let's put it that way.
It is that, but that's great. I mean, I really like the idea of Bray making it into one of the mandalas. I was going to hit you with a quote. This goes back to something you were saying before about meeting someone when you travel, and I can't remember what you said. It was something about the social thing. So here's two quotes, and I got these earlier. This is something I do. I think I've mentioned before on the podcast. I get this word a day email, which is basically this little etymological email explaining the origin of a certain word, and then it's shown in usage. But Anu Garg is the creator of the word a day newsletter and website, and he always puts a quote at the end of the newsletter. And I was just going through last week's quotes, and there were a couple of goodies. So here's two that might just tap into a little bit of what we were talking about before, this idea of being a lone traveller or a solo traveller, and being out in the world and being in these different spaces, places, and finally maybe you said, I think, maybe you might have a conversation with someone that just puts you on the right track, and there's I'm putting words in your mouth now, but like fundamentally you're acknowledging that we are social. There is a social animal in us. Mm-hmm. So further to that thought, here's two things. The first from Carl Jung, the psychiatrist. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed.
Yep.
Which is quite nice, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you mention that is, and there is nothing wrong with a life without travel, but when we're in a society where we're all living more similar lives, we can be two people coming together, but we're less likely to transform each other.
Interesting idea, yeah.
But if we're from two different cultures, what if you're the first person from Australia that this person might be? What if they're the first person that you have an encounter with when you get off a plane in a new country? Do you know what I mean? But
there's also this thing, we were talking about this earlier today, about the liberation of travel, about being separated from the familiar, and what the sense of freedom, the sense of positive removal from the familiar that actually facilitates. And if you think you're out there in the world somewhere far from home, travelling, and maybe of course you can be meeting people from that local culture, but you can also be meeting other travellers, maybe other like-minded people, and in a way I suppose, and it's not to be too naff, and maybe this has been overused lately, but in a way we might be talking about your tribe a little bit. Like when you're out there in the world and you're meeting people who are going, we get it, we get this travel thing. That can also be maybe, and then that maybe works against this point we're making, like maybe you're less likely to be transformed by a member of your own tribe. But there is something that transpires, there's something that passes between people that
look, I don't want to be too idealistic about it, or pretend that travel is some perfect thing.
Yeah.
But for example, I find it very hard to actually really get in and form really good relationships, and especially if you're moving quickly.
Yeah.
Then how could you expect to do that? You can't expect to do that. So there are times when you might stay somewhere, or some travellers spend more times than I do in places like woofing, where they're on organic farms and helping locals out with their properties and all that kind of stuff. It's a good way to get in.
Woofers woof.
They do.
What's a woofer?
A woofer is a willing worker on organic farms.
Oh, willing worker on organic farms. I thought it was working on organic farms for free.
Well, that's the other.
Is that not right?
That's also true. Probably.
There can be. Yeah.
Maybe not for free, but you get your food, you get your board.
Are woofers still out there?
Yeah. It still happens. Yeah.
Okay.
And probably variations of it.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I think probably people being taken advantage of, and in others, people having very enriching experiences.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, apart from the culture of the country you're in, there is another overlaying culture, and that is amongst travellers.
Yeah.
And it has a positive side, it has a negative side, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that is also an opportunity to meet people from different countries.
Sure.
Who are generally at a fairly open time of their lives, where they're wanting to have adventures, they're wanting to explore different cultures on some level.
But sometimes it's an exploration. Sometimes it's a, sorry to jump across here, but sometimes I think it's an exploration of self.
Well, that's what it kind of becomes, and that's what those kinds of interactions can be.
Like that
can be about. Really,
that might be a bit of a cliche, but the idea that we leave home, we leave the familiar to find ourselves, to understand ourselves more, or to find new reflections of ourselves. Maybe, I mean, maybe that's part of what's possibly seductive about travelling. When you go out in the world and you're like, okay, what's being shown back to me about myself? I mean, and it's not to make it all, this is all about, the exploration of me and my narcissistic obsession. And when I say me, I mean you. But I quite like that idea, though. To be out there. Okay, where am I off to next? And I mean, we know where you're going next. Germany, Turkey, Spain, and then hopefully on to South America this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting idea. Are we only knowing ourselves through others, or can we know ourselves in isolation?
I think it can help. Like, I just don't. For anything valuable in life, nobody needs travel, or it doesn't need to be travel, but travel can be a way to some of these things. Getting to know yourself while travelling is really effective, in my opinion. We have to be pretty self-sufficient. There's always some kind of problem solving that needs to go on. But let's not pretend it's not a somewhat privileged position to be in. Not everyone can do it. So,
What I heard from everything you just said, what I take away from that is you don't need to travel. And then that's what I'm going to tell my wife when she says, let's try and go here, let's try and go there. And I'll go, Sean said you don't need to travel. So I'm just going to sit here by my microphone and keep pumping out podcasts. And then when we get divorced, I'm going to blame you. Here's the next quote I'm going to hit you with. And this might be, we're in the same area. Listen to this. And this is from Karl Popper. Not the man who invented poppers, but the philosopher and professor. He said, "We are social creatures to the inmost centre of our being. The notion that one can begin anything at all from scratch, free from the past, or unindebted to others, could not conceivably be more wrong." That's quite deep, is it? What do you think of that?
Once more, please.
We are social creatures to the inmost centre of our being. The notion that one can begin anything at all from scratch, free from the past, or unindebted to others, could not conceivably be more wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of profound, isn't it? And I'm probably inclined to agree. We just change so much. We're so affected by our experiences, aren't we? It's what we learn from. It's how we evolve.
There can be no pure separation. There can be no pure isolation. That becomes just a mind game, just to try and put oneself into that place, into a sphere of total separation from everything you've come from. I mean, I think that's the pursuit of Buddhist monks, or
I think that's probably right.
Yeah, people who withdraw from society completely, or enter into lives of dedicated, deep, transformative meditation.
I think we all want to feel that if possible, all of our experiences, particularly the most complicated ones, can be reconciled inside of ourselves one day. But most of us don't ever get to that point. But finally, do we need to? I'm not sure that we need to. But,
I don't know.
But if we're on that path.
Sure.
Yeah, if we're on that path.
Oh yeah, it's I don't know. I think sometimes there can be, and I mean I talk about this a bit on the podcast, there can be a kind of an earnest striving for deeper understanding or more fulfilled resolution or reconciliation with the war inside. And then sometimes I just think, oh, for fuck's sake, just get over it. Get over yourself. Just get out there and, live your day. I think we'll conclude on that note because you've got a plane to catch. Thanks so much for doing this. It's been really nice talking to you, and it's been great having you here with us for the last week.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Travelmandalas.com. I'll put the link in the description. Check out Sean's work. It's really beautiful, unique, distinct, and well worth a look, and well worth a purchase in my opinion. So Sean, listen, best of luck with the ongoing travels, best of luck with the art, best of luck with the path, and let's both just go out there and live our day.
Let's do that.
Nice.
Thanks a lot,
buddy.
Dara. Thanks,
listen,
mate.
you mind yourself, okay? Take care. Thanks for coming in.
Cheers, mate.
So there you go. That was myself and Sean Whitehill talking, getting sleepier as the conversation went on, getting quieter as the conversation went on, but a nice little chat nonetheless. And nice to hear the thoughts of Sean on what travel means to him. And do please go and check out his work. I think you'll like it a lot. So that's it. That's all for another week. Thank you for listening, downloading. Do follow me on social media. Do subscribe to the podcast. You can find me all over the place. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Pocket Casts, wherever. I'm out there. And social media, it's the Clear Out Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can email me at theclearoutlive@gmail.com. And I hope soon enough in the coming month or so, touch wood, fingers crossed, etc. A new website where you'll be able to find everything related to the pod, including the archive of articles and poems and short stories from the website, the blog that really began this journey in 2013, and all the archive of episodes as well, and other stuff in the future, hopefully. So that will be coming very soon, I hope. And otherwise, if you are a fan of the show, the tell, whatever you want to call it, this thing that I do, and want to support it as an independent podcast, you can do so. You can use the supporter link, which you should find in the description of this episode. Or if you want to use Patreon to become a regular contributor to the show, you can do that too. That's patreon.com/the clear out. And that's only a matter of throwing a few euros a week or a month even towards the show, but it all helps, and it's just a way of acknowledging that this is something worthwhile, that this takes time, effort, commitment, discipline. I put a lot of love into it and a lot of thought, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavour. And maybe if you're listening, you go, yeah, I think it is too. So that's nice. And as always, if you can't afford to subscribe, a contribution, a donation, don't worry about it. Just, spread the word. Pass it on to someone else who you think might enjoy it. Because that's how these things grow. Like little apples. Little apples grow. Acorns grow. All kinds of things grow. Mushrooms, carrots, turnips. This could be a very long epilogue. Okay, take it easy. Mind yourselves as always. Keep enjoying that summer if it's the summer where you are. Keep wrapped up and stoic if it's the winter and you're feeling the chill. And I will talk to you next week. Okay, all the best. Take care. See ya. Bye.